About 3 days after suddenly losing contact with Josh, I got a call out of the blue from my mother-in-law. "Tell you what, if you're living together, I'll let you know where my son's new place is. He earns $16,000 a month." Who earns $16,000 a month? I couldn't believe my ears when I heard her say that. Josh must have been showing off and lying. He didn't want to worry me, so I kept quiet, but I'm not going to stay married to Josh if I'm being mocked like this. "Well, I guess I'll divorce my husband who's earning $1,600 then." "Don't lie." My mother-in-law laughed loudly over the phone. "Well, I'm not bothered by being misunderstood. I'll consult a lawyer to start divorce process. You'll be the one struggling with a poor lifestyle. Goodbye." I hung up the phone, leaving my triumphant mother-in-law behind. Josh must have heard about the divorce because I suddenly got a bunch of calls from him, so I decided to block his number. I wonder who will regret this. I enjoyed my coffee, relishing my newfound freedom. I'm looking forward to what the future holds for the three of them. I'm Kelly, a 48-year-old tax accountant. My parents passed away early, but I've been working hard, running the tax accounting office they left behind. I met Josh at college. He was 3 years younger than me and kept pursuing me, but I didn't pay much attention to him. However, after we graduated, he continued his pursuit and I finally gave in and we started dating. Josh's brightness won over my parents, and we quickly got married. My in-laws didn't think highly of me. First, because I was older, and secondly, because I was a tax accountant, as Josh told me. They were initially against our marriage. But they quickly changed their minds when my father passed away suddenly before our wedding, and I took over the office. The wedding, which I paid for, was held grandly. Because of that, I never really liked my in-laws. Josh, on his part, never stood up to his parents when they made snide remarks and just apologized to me later, which wasn't very reassuring. When we were nearing our 5th year of marriage, my mother suddenly passed away. She was living in a nursing home and developed pneumonia from a cold. She wasn't very strong and eventually passed away, joining my father in heaven. I managed to be there for her last moments, but Josh, claiming he was busy with work, arrived only after she had passed. Oh man, I missed it. That's too bad. I couldn't believe how he casually said that. Even though he owed a lot to both my parents, how ungrateful he was. Josh then carelessly started talking about the inheritance. "Well, you've got the business and the house now, right? What about savings? How much did your mom leave? I've got a bike I really want." Indeed, my mom had saved a substantial amount. It was enough for us to live comfortably without extravagance. But I didn't want to let a man who talked about his desires right after my mother's death use my parents' savings. "There's a bit, but not much left. Besides, where would you even keep a bike? Just rent a parking space nearby. Or are you planning to keep all of your mom's inheritance to yourself?" Josh glared at me with a demonic expression. And he clicked his tongue before storming out of the hospital. That night, he didn't come home and was unreachable. He always does this when we fight. Fed up with his childish behavior, I finally called his parents' house. "Hello. Oh, it's Kelly. Are you trying to hog all of your mother's inheritance for yourself?" That was the first thing my mother-in-law said, and I immediately knew my suspicions were correct. "I'm not planning to keep it all for myself. I just want to use my mother's inheritance wisely. That's not for you to decide." How dare you, a daughter-in-law, be so presumptuous? I couldn't understand her point of view at all. Why was it cheeky for me, her daughter, to decide how to use my mother's inheritance? I replied, trying to control my anger. "Anyway, I'll decide how to use my mother's inheritance. If Josh can't accept that, I'm considering divorce." "Divorce?" After my mother-in-law's shrill voice, I heard Josh's panicked voice from the other end. Then, after a bit, she tried to sweet-talk me. "Kelly, calm down. I'll send Josh back tomorrow. Have a good talk, okay?" Okay. Arguing further with my mother-in-law wouldn't change anything. So I decided to end the conversation with a short reply. "That's good. See, you both just got heated. I'm sure you can work things out by talking. Josh is remorseful." "Is he?" My curt attitude seemed to panic my mother-in-law. In fact, I had been sending about $4,000 a month to my in-laws. She seemed terrified that this would stop if we divorced. Eventually, Josh stayed at his parents' house that night and I rested at home. The next morning, Josh came back early and immediately apologized to me. I'm sorry. I really wanted that bike and acted horribly without considering your feelings. Josh has always been impulsive, unable to resist immediate desires. Being a spender, it kind of made sense. If something like this happens again, I'll divorce you without question. And don't run to your parents' house every time we fight. I end up getting scolded by your mother. My bad. Why didn't I divorce him then? I regret it now, but back then, I believed Josh would change. However, Josh started acting strangely around that time. First, he began coming home late. Then, he started caring about his appearance, which he had neglected before. I was busy with work, so I didn't notice these changes until the winter of our 10th year of marriage. I quit my job. What? What do you mean? The rare time we sat across each other at the dinner table, Josh casually mentioned this while having his soup. I almost dropped my bowl in shock. Well, you're making good money, right? You've even been on TV lately. So, I don't need to work anymore. That's ridiculous. Things are good now, but who knows about the future? Josh looked annoyed at my words. But he quickly smirked and pointed at me. A tax accountant can find work anywhere, right? I want a job where I'm needed more. So I'm gonna find myself, you know? I was speechless. I hadn't touched my mother's inheritance. It was still there. Honestly, even if I struggled now, I'd be secure until retirement. But I never expected Josh to quit his job. I hadn't even told him how much my mother's inheritance was. He was completely relying on my income. Marriage is about helping each other in tough times. But I had never heard of Josh struggling at work. Currently, I do all the housework, and we split living expenses evenly, with me bearing a larger burden. Now he wants me to support him and do all the housework? That's ridiculous. The thought of divorce strongly crossed my mind. What about living expenses? Well, I'll do some part-time work. As long as you contribute the same amount as before. Huh? That's impossible. I'll only bring in $1,000. Josh's words gave me a headache. We both contributed $2,000 each month. The idea that he'd suddenly contribute only half was absurd. What was Josh thinking? All right, that's that. I've got plans with friends. Hey, wait a minute. Josh abruptly ended the conversation and left to hang out. Josh left forcefully, and due to my preoccupation with his words, I made several mistakes at work that day, leading to more overtime. Josh took advantage of this, coming home later and later. Even when I pointed this out, he became angry instead of remorseful. After starting his part-time job, he completely stopped doing household chores, coming home late and sleeping, living like a student. How long do you plan to keep up this lifestyle? Do your parents know? Hey, don't tell my mom and dad. It'll worry them. But... Josh angrily slammed the table at my words. Just wait. I'll get a job soon. Until then, keep it a secret. I believed Josh and decided not to tell his parents. However, even after 2 years, Josh didn't leave his part-time lifestyle. He started hopping between jobs, earning $1,600 a month and spending it all as pocket money. We can live comfortably on your salary. It's not a problem. Recently, Josh said such things, leaving me to pay all the living expenses. I initially insisted on his contribution, but gradually, handling all the finances became a hassle, and I ended up shouldering everything. This lifestyle made me question the point of Josh's presence. And our marriage. I continued the marriage because I couldn't forget my parents' smiling faces when we decided to get married. However, an incident that trampled on my feelings occurred. Strange, the phone's not connecting. One day, when Josh didn't come home after his shift, I called him. But he didn't answer. Maybe he was at his parents' or out drinking. Well, he'll probably be back tomorrow. Josh often came home late, so I wasn't too worried. But after 2 days without any contact or return, I began to worry. I called his parents' house. But they too were unreachable. I even considered contacting the police, fearing an incident. 3 days after losing contact with Josh, I suddenly got a call from my mother-in-law. If you live together, I'll tell you where my son's new place is. He makes $16,000 a month. Who makes $16,000 a month? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Josh must have lied to impress. I kept quiet to not worry them, but I had no intention of continuing a marriage where I was being mocked. Then I guess I'll divorce my husband who brings home $1,600. Don't lie. My mother-in-law laughed loudly on the other end. Well, I'm not bothered by being misunderstood. I'll consult a lawyer to start divorce process. You'll struggle with a poor lifestyle. Goodbye. I hung up on my triumphant mother-in-law. After that, I received numerous calls from Josh, so I decided to block his number. I wonder who will regret this. I enjoyed my coffee, relishing my newfound freedom. I'm looking forward to what the future holds for the three of them. The next morning, I left the house early. I had already changed the locks yesterday. Even if Josh returned, he couldn't enter. By noon, I checked my phone and, as expected, saw missed calls from my mother-in-law. I listened to the voicemails through my earphones. The first few were from Josh. Hey! The locks have been changed, and I can't get in. Come back home right now. Gradually, the messages changed to a softer tone, begging me not to divorce and to come back. I saved all these messages and booked a room at a nearby hotel. After work, I moved to the hotel and messaged my mother-in-law. The divorce process has already started. That's my family home, so Josh, now a stranger, can't enter. His belongings are already shipped. I ignored the multiple calls that followed, assuming it was Josh. Then came a message. Divorce isn't good. We are tied by the thread of fate. Take my hand again, there's still time. I almost spat out my coffee at the creepiness of that message. I never thought Josh was a man of letters, but I didn't expect him to be this disastrously bad. Holding back laughter, I replied to Josh. I'm sorry, but our relationship is over. Soon after, I received an even creepier message from Josh, but I just laughed it off on my bed and ignored it. The next day, I took a day off work and went to see a lawyer I know. It was a friend from my college days who was familiar with Josh. He readily agreed to take on my case after I explained the situation. I prepared all the documents and presented the evidence I had been collecting over the years. With my friend's approval, I set a date for the final showdown with Josh. When I informed Josh, he quickly agreed to attend the meeting. He also sent a text begging for reconciliation, which I ignored, responding with a curt "see you then." On the day, Josh and his parents appeared, strangely confident. Have you reflected enough? It's been long enough to cool your head, right? Maybe it's time to come back home. Yeah, your house is so lovely. Josh's words were echoed by his annoying mother-in-law. I just smiled at them. Seeing the person standing next to me, Josh's face turned pale. Bob? Why are you here? Because I hired him. That's not fair. I don't understand what you mean. Josh glared at me, gritting his teeth in frustration. Amidst this, his mother smirked and spoke up. Oh, Kelly, that's not good. What do you mean? Being with another man while still married. Isn't that adultery? Both my friend and I could only respond to her absurd claim with a wry smile. My friend took out our contract from his bag and explained it to her. She became furious upon hearing everything. What? A lawyer? Don't get ahead of yourself. I'm paying with my own money, it's my right. You're welcome to hire one too. Faced with the truth, she grimaced. Knowing her stinginess, she wouldn't approve of spending so much on a lawyer. Then Josh, trying to be smart, spoke to my friend, Bob. Great idea. If Bob represents me too, we can resolve this. That's ridiculous. Shut up. You stay out of it. Josh said, glaring at me. I showed him the alimony claim papers. He quickly scanned them and blanched. What's this? Exactly what you see. The alimony claim detailed his failure to contribute to living expenses, not returning home and not helping with household chores, misusing joint savings, and infidelity. You knew about this. With how obvious you were, I thought you weren't even trying to hide it. His face went pale at my words. I discovered the misuse of our joint savings about a year ago. The account has been managed by Josh since our marriage. I hadn't used that account much and didn't create a card to avoid withdrawals. Due to Josh's extravagant spending and checking the statements online, my suspicions were confirmed. His credit card bills were being deducted from that account every month. So, you'll pay back what you misused, right? Half of that is mine. Well, yes. But the account is in my name, and you haven't deposited anything for years. Josh cursed and showed his irritation. His glances, trying to gauge my reaction, were infuriating. His gestures, which I once thought were seeking forgiveness or the right moment to reconcile, no longer seemed charming in a 45-year-old man. Displeased with my unimpressed demeanor, Josh clicked his tongue exaggeratedly and started talking down to me. The problem is, you've never really respected your husband, which is a basic thing, you know. That's why I've been forgiving you with money. Josh's selfish argument made my temples twitch in annoyance. What should I do with this fool? As I contemplated, I pulled out evidence of his infidelity from my bag. It seems you've been quite busy with various girls, haven't you? This is your fault. What? His nonsensical excuse made me ask in disbelief. Then, his mother, who had been listening, started talking smugly. Josh is a catch, you know? He doesn't need someone like you. He's got a high income, good looks, and above all, he's kind. But not kind to his wife, apparently. My interjection clearly didn't amuse her. She turned red with anger and yelled. That's because you're an unattractive wife. If you were young and cute like these girls in the photos, Josh would be kind to you. She said this and pulled Josh's arm. Josh, looking completely drained, nodded weakly but kept glancing at me nervously. I couldn't pass up such an opportunity, so I took out another piece of evidence from my bag and showed it to her. Your pride and joy's son, he wouldn't have any companions without paying at those clubs, you know? What is this supposed to mean? She snatched the photo from me and thrust it at Josh. Josh, seeming to have lost all energy to make excuses, just looked down. It's exactly as you see. Josh's affair partners were girls from nightclubs. He's been visiting them daily and showering them with gifts. His mother blinked in disbelief, holding onto Josh's arm. Infidelity was just. I wanted Kelly to be jealous. I was lonely. I'm sorry. I'll stop. Really? As Josh desperately tried to explain himself, I pulled out another document. It was a printout of messages Josh had sent to the girls, promising to marry them after getting a hefty sum from our divorce settlement. He's been telling these girls he'll divorce me and lavish them with wealth from the property division. What about that? I read aloud, and Josh, visibly shaken, snatched the paper from my hand and crumpled it. You can destroy it all you want. I have plenty more. This is harassment. No, just showing the truth. Josh gritted his teeth in frustration but seemed to realize he couldn't win this argument. He just clenched his fists and glared at me. Then, his previously silent father suddenly spoke up. It's all Kelly's fault for not paying attention to him. Isn't it your responsibility? Infidelity is just a man's way of showing his worth. What era is he living in? I stared in disbelief. Thinking he made a good point, he looked smugly at me. You say it's his worth, but Josh doesn't have that kind of money. Using his wife's money to impress others, that's pretty lame. I intended to hit him with logic, but his father just burst into laughter. It made me confused. You lived off Josh's salary while saving up that money, right? That's why you could save so much. A mere part-timer like you shouldn't be so presumptuous. Who's a part-timer? I looked at Josh with irritation. Josh quickly looked away as our eyes met. Realizing something, I addressed his father. Do you even know what my job is? You're just a part-timer at a tax office, right? No. I am a certified tax accountant. And also the CEO. Stop bluffing. No, it's the truth. I handed him my business card. I was grateful for my habit of always carrying them. He looked at it, disbelief written all over his face. This isn't fake? It's real. My friend here can vouch for that. My friend nodded, and Josh's father turned pale. I decided to drop another bombshell. Josh's income, $160,000, right? That's actually my income. What? Look, here's Josh's pay stub. I handed it to my father-in-law, who cautiously peeked at it. My mother-in-law also looked over his shoulder. Their faces quickly turned red. Josh was lying. Hey! What is this? Your salary is only $1,600? What happened to the company you were working for? Confronted by his parents, Josh looked at me with a plea for help in his eyes. I decided to throw him a lifeline. Josh quit his job suddenly a few years ago. He said there were other jobs out there more suitable for him. Well, it seems he hasn't found that job in the past few years. It was a lifeline, but more like a sinking boat with a hole in it. Josh looked at me with a look of despair. I returned a bright smile to Josh. If your income hadn't been so low, we would never have suggested living together. Apologize to Kelly right now. It's not too late. Hearing his parents' selfish reasoning, Josh started to beg me. But his actions didn't move me at all. Kelly, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I'll find a job. I'll work. Just give me one more chance with you. No way. My honest response left Josh gaping at me in shock. He probably thought I'd forgive him if he just apologized. Unfortunately, I don't need a costly roommate in my life. There was love when I used to forgive with apologies, but now, there's no love left for you. That can't be. Josh collapsed on the floor, crying. No one comforted him, everyone just looked on with cold eyes. Kelly, I'm sorry. We had no idea. But can't you reconsider the divorce? That's right. It's too hasty, isn't it? This time we'll live together and straighten out Josh. I was almost impressed by their persistence in trying to prevent the divorce and force cohabitation. Why should I forgive Josh and live with you? Faced with my straightforward question, his parents scrambled for an answer. Well, you don't have parents anymore, right? We think of you as a real daughter. That's right. Being alone is sad. Their claim of considering me their real daughter didn't please me at all. In fact, it disgusted me. My feelings must have shown on my face, as they continued talking nervously. Shopping and lunch would be nice, right? Let's live together happily from now on. Right. Living together, we'll surely understand each other better. Hearing this, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Josh and his parents looked at me in astonishment as I suddenly burst out laughing. That's funny. Happily? Understand each other? You must be joking. Living with a cheating husband, a father-in-law, and a pretentious mother-in-law? No, thank you. My words turned their faces red. But then, my mother-in-law's face turned pale. A cheating husband and father-in-law. Oh, you noticed? Yes, it's not just Josh who's cheating. Saying this, I took out the last piece of evidence from my bag. My mother-in-law's face twisted in horror as she looked at the photo. You're still continuing this. Why do you have this photo? Actually, when I went to request the infidelity investigation, I accidentally witnessed my father-in-law's affair. Thinking it might be useful, I took photos as evidence. You said we were already over that time. No, wait, this is a misunderstanding. What misunderstanding? Where did you go wearing the tie I gave you? While the two argued, Josh was visibly distressed. I took this opportunity to hand him the divorce papers. Can you sign this now? Are we really getting a divorce? Of course. Hurry up and sign. Josh, crying softly, signed the divorce papers. I bid farewell to him and left his quarreling parents behind. Afterwards, we went through the divorce process. I officially became free. Fortunately, there were no complications with my work. Josh somehow managed to find full-time employment later. But his salary was half of what he used to make, and he had to work twice as long. Apparently, he cried every day, wanting to quit. After years of flitting from one part-time job to another, it seemed he expected to return to his previous status and income immediately. His classmate, who told me this, was astonished by his unrealistic expectations. Moreover, as soon as his flings realized he had no money left, cheating partners disappeared like spiders scattering. Predictably, it wasn't Josh but his money that had been attractive. He was so shocked that he confronted the women at their workplace, only to be harshly dealt with by some intimidating men, and since then, he hasn't been able to return to those nightclubs. As for the house he had moved into, it turned out he had used my savings for the down payment and soon couldn't afford the mortgage, resulting in him being kicked out. Now, he lives crammed in a small room with his parents. His parents, after a big fight, divorced but couldn't afford to live separately, so they ended up living off Josh's salary. His father's affair had been with his mother's schoolmate, continuing even after their initial discovery when Josh was a child. However, after this incident, the mistress left him for good. Like Josh, his father had squandered his savings on women. Naturally, they fought daily over money and women, sometimes even involving the police. They became known as the troublesome family in the neighborhood, unable to find part-time work and relying only on a meager pension. As for me, my company's doing well, and we've hired more staff. The business demands even more of my attention now. My friend, who became our legal advisor, has been a great help. I've also started keeping a cat, something I couldn't do before due to Josh's dislike of animals. I dedicated a room in my new house to the cat, with a cat tower and other amenities. The cat brings me comfort and balance. Even on tired days after work, my work performance has improved. I'm even considering adopting a second cat. Also, I've recently become interested in someone. The friend who became my legal advisor. We've known each other since college, but I never saw him that way before. However, after my divorce, he was there for me, listening to my stories all night and taking me out for meals. He even introduced me to my cat. The cat is fond of him, and he often visits on his days off. He's calm and trustworthy, someone I can really rely on. It's hard not to fall for someone like that. I've started to feel his affection towards me too. Maybe a new spring is just around the corner. All right, let's do this. I wrapped my favorite scarf around my neck, talking to my reflection in the mirror. It's my daily routine that really pumps me up. Tonight, I have dinner planned with him, so no overtime at work. I'm determined to express my gratitude and feelings to him. With that resolve, I left the house. The sky is so blue. I hope my life will be as bright and beautiful as this sky from now on. With these thoughts, I head to work today.